everyone. We are so sorry. Today, as we said, we will talk. Okay, let us fix this one. So we made a promise that we will talk about the story of the African independence. I will be speaking in French and English, just because we want to help other people, those who speak French and those who speak English. So my name is Valère. I'm the president of the Coalition of Civil Society Organization for the emergence of Congo and Africa. I'm a former president of the Congolese community in the United States. So we believe that learning from same story, this will help us. I'm so sorry about the technical problem. We will try to do our best so we can get a good technology, and this will help us during this process and this project. So the project is an educational public project to help the African American or the world or Black and American, as we say sometimes, just to learn about the story and to see what lesson we can take away from this story. At that time, the Africa had 42 countries, and each country has a story for his independence. So today we're gonna talk about Liberia, which is one of the country. I will try to show you the African geography card. I think you're gonna see it from here. So this is the African geography card, which will help us to understand where is Liberia. So is one of the country in the West Africa, opposing the east side of America continent. And this country has some countries as neighbors, like Guinea, Sierra Leone, as we call it in French, Côte d'Ivoire, Ivoire Costa in English. And the capital of Liberia is Monrovia. So for some story, the Liberia is made by the people that we can call African American or Black American, descent of slave, those people who left Africa, who came as a slave in America and all around the world. So they had been negotiating with the US government just to help them so they can live in peace, or like they can go back to Africa, or they can stay in the US, but to have more advantage. That's why they had been negotiating with the government, the US government, to find solutions or to get more advantage. And as the negotiation was going through, they had been looking for ship, the slavery ship or big ship coming from Europe. So they had been hiding there, living there. And one day they found a big ship that had a lot of food inside. They also had idea how to navigate, how to use the ship. So that's why they decide to leave America and to go back to Africa. They used the ship to go back to Africa. So that is a little story that I will read in French to help those who speak French to understand. Then I will be back in English. So in French, we read and we say that Liberia, situé sur la côte occidentale de l'Afrique, le Liberia est un pays d'Afrique de l'Ouest qui donne largement sur l'océan Atlantique et au sud et à l'ouest, au nord-est par la Sierra Leone, au nord par la Guinée et à l'est par la Côte d'Ivoire, avec la superficie de 111 369 km² et sa capitale est Monrovia. So I was giving the geographical position of Liberia. Now I'm gonna read a little bit the story of Liberia. And from the story, in French, they said, l'histoire de ce pays était très complexe. Pour obtenir des informations, selon certains historiens, la population de ce pays est la descendance négro-américaine. Ce furent les Noirs américains qui se sont évadés d'un grand bateau, ayant la maîtrise de toutes les commandes et autres activités maritimes. Ils ont réussi à arriver à la destination. So they were talking about what I just talked about, Black American, those who knew how to operate the big ship so they could use it to go back to Africa. And the destination, their goal was to go to Liberia. So this is something they made it. So I'm keep reading. Le but de leur évasion, selon quelques historiens que l'auteur avait rencontré, fut de la manière suivante. Il négociait avec le gouvernement américain en vue de conclure la fin de l'esclavage, en sollicitant aux deux chambres parlementaires une nouvelle délibération des textes légaux et législatifs pour libérer les Noirs afin qu'ils puissent rentrer chez eux. So they're just talking about what I was saying, that the Black American ancestors at that time, they had been negotiating with the US government just to get more freedom or to go back to Africa and to make their life better. So That was the main line of this story, and we can get the idea of that. Now we are preparing to get the point of our meeting today. I'm going back to read in French, and I will explain again in English. Tout ne se fait pas sans heurts, notamment avec les autochtones, cependant fortement implantés sur la côté de la nouvelle colonie. So here they're explaining that it was not easy for Black American ancestors to go back to Liberia and to live together with people who have been living there. Just we have to understand that they are the same people, African, same people, but they were those who left the continent because of slavery. Now they are coming back. They have kind of another mentality, and they have to adjust with those had been left behind. So that's why we are reading here that it was not easy for them to be connected with the people who had been left behind. So now we're gonna try to cover a little bit the story of the intervention of the men who helped them to get the independence. But when we are talking about independence here, there are some points we have to understand that the Liberia was one of the first country who got his independence, because this was due to the people came from United States. They went back to Liberia to have their own land and to be free. So that's why they knew how much the freedom was better for them. So they worked hard to get that freedom before even all the African country to start getting the political independence. And that was one of the important points to notify, that the Liberia was one of the first country from African continent having the independence before the time that all the countries start to have the independence. So we're gonna read this story from 1822. So this is what they say. I'm gonna read in French, and I will try to explain in English. En 1822, le Liberia fut fondé par une société américaine de colonisation dénommée American Organization Society pour y installer des esclaves noirs libérés aux États-Unis. So what they are talking here, they are telling us in 1822, the Liberia had been found as a country by what they called the American Colonization Society. And the goal was to have that space so they can create a free country for slave people. So slave, those who were living United States, they could go back to Africa and live, occupy that part of the land. And that was in 1822. So I'm keeping reading in French what they are saying here. Appelé Morovia à l'honneur du président des États-Unis James Monroe, sa capitale accueillait également des populations libérées de l'intérieur des terres. So they are saying that the name of the capital the Liberia capital is the name of the former president of the United States. We mean at that time, James Morrow was the leader of the United States. So they took his last name, they give it to the city of Liberia as the name of the capital. So it says, le 26 juillet 1847, le Liberia s'autoproclama indépendant et élite américano-libérienne représentée par le parti True Whig conserva le pouvoir durant un siècle. So what they are saying here, since July 26, 1847, the Liberia made a proclamation of the independence. So those who came from United States, they were the first leader to lead that country. And that was over 100 years. I'm keep reading in French. Déjà en 1931, l'Organisation des Nations Unies, alors la Société des Nations Unies, condamna les conditions de travail forcé imposées aux autochtones par les Américano-libériens pour le compte des multinationales de l'industrie du caoutchouc. So here they are talking that in 1931, the United Nations had made a statement to condemn the use of force or the abuse of power that ancestors from United States had been doing to the people they found in Liberia. So we keep reading in French. Depuis l'autoproclamation de l'indépendance, les 16 présidents élus n'ont pas pu le faire parce que les USA les empêchaient faute d'avoir obtenu l'adhésion à l'ONU. Le peuple libérien s'est mis en colère et décida de rompre toutes les relations avec les Américains en accordant 24 heures à l'ambassadeur américain pour quitter le pays. So, here there is a story of the people of Liberia working hard to get a recognition from the United Nations. And at that time, the US government was against that, and they didn't let them to get the recognition from United Nations. So the people of Liberia had been frustrated, and they were working very hard to get that recognition. Les USA envisageaient des sanctions militaires contre les Libériens. Entre-temps, il y eut des interventions de puissances étrangères. URSS, Russie, Chine, Japon, Allemagne, Grande-Bretagne, la France. Le chef d'État, M. Williams Tubman, président de la République de Liberia, convoqua dans la grande salle du Parlement une conférence d'union nationale regroupant toutes les couches socio-politiques et de toutes tendances confondues. Conseil législatif, exécutif et judiciaire, Assemblée nationale, partis politiques, société civile, chefs coutumiers et représentants des ethnies. Le quorum n'était pas atteint. So here they're explaining another story that on the way they were fighting for them to get the recognition from the United Nations. They decide to come together as a country, as people, as a nation, so they can meet and talk about the issues and to have idea what they're gonna do, what they're gonna say to the United Nations, like a general ensemble. So they had been fighting for their freedom, and they had been talking about that. They have been looking for the way to fund their future, and so that the life can be better for them. So the president of that time, he was the president number 17. Just remember that I told you they had been the first country of Africa to get the independence, because they came from United States and they knew about the freedom. So that's why they were looking to live the freedom and to make their life better. So the president of Liberia at that time, he was the president between 1895 to 1971. I was not yet born, believe me. So this is the story we are learning and we are sharing. So he called all the country to come together, all different groups to come together and to talk about what they're gonna do. And it says that they didn't know what to do. They didn't have idea of what they have to do. And this meeting it was planning for 3 days. So they had 2 days. This way I'm gonna read it. Durant 2 jours, aucune conclusion n'était trouvée à la grande surprise de tous. So they are saying that after 2 days, they didn't have a solution. They didn't find a conclusion. Le troisième jour et le dernier jour, il était 16 heures. Now they are talking about the last day, the third day. And they say that it was 4 o'clock p.m. in Liberia. And this is the European time. So this means probably in the US, it was around 10 a.m. at that time. So then this says, le troisième et le dernier jour, il était 16 heures juste. La conférence tendait vers la fin. Et le désespoir battait son plein dans la salle. Le président de la République, très inquiet, demandant aux chefs de différentes commissions s'il y avait encore à présenter comme préalable ou autre argument convaincant devant la tribune des Nations Unies. Le silence complet. Mais dans les corridors. So here, I want to explain again that they are saying on that day, it was 4 p.m. and that was the last day. They didn't have a conclusion. They didn't have no argument. So that could save them at the meeting of the United Nations. And they didn't know what to do at that time. So they just saying that at that moment that they didn't know what they're gonna do, there were nothing to add. There were no idea. So the meeting was coming to the conclusion, and they could not find any solutions or new ideas or arguments that they're going to use to support their request to the United Nations. Now they are talking about a coming man, a special coming man that we're going to learn together. So I'm go back to read in French. It says that le silence complet, mais dans les corridors qui séparaient l'espace du protocole et celui des observateurs. So, as the room had been quiet, they were observing. Now we go. They were a sitting space, and that sitting space had been reserved for observer, like diplomat people, and the chief of traditional. The chief of traditional, they had been sitting there. Now they say that from that side, I'm going back to read in French, qui ont pris part à la séance surgit un homme en tenue du chef coutumier, pagne blanc et très brillant. Il est très propre, à vue d'œil, grand détail, au teint sombre et à la démarche d'un bourgeois, muni d'une pochette de papier dans sa main. So now here they are talking about a coming man, a special man with a dress like a chief of traditional or like a African woman could dress. And he was so cute, a handsome man. And he was walking as a chief with authority. So he was going to the front of the meeting to take the place. I'm keep reading. Il passa devant et tous les assistants à la réunion se regardèrent entre eux. Les membres du protocole d'État étaient restés tétanisés. C'est ainsi que le président de la République, qui était encore en position debout, s'est mis assise, sans qu'un protocole puisse l'inviter à le faire. So now they keep talking about this special man, a mystery man. That's why in our title of this meeting, we are talking about the mystery of the African countries' independence story. So they are talking about this mystery man who came from nothing. From nothing. He had not been there since the beginning of the meeting. No one saw him. But they just saw him at that time that they finished the meeting without a conclusion. A man came out from nothing. We can say from space, because he had not been there. So he came from nothing. And this man took a place at the front. And the president of Liberia at that time, he had been sitting, but because of the coming, he had been standing to go, but because of the coming of that man, the president of Liberia decided to take a seat back without a protocol service. He went to sit back just because this man was a man of power. But we don't know yet who is this man. This is just the beginning of the African countries' independence story and the mystery behind this story. So, I'm going back to reading in French, and I will be back to explain in English. C'est donc l'homme en panne qui, sous les regards interrogatoires des assistants, se faufila dans l'espace du président de la chambre basse jusqu'à monter au podium. Le directeur du protocole n'a même pas pu l'interroger pour savoir qui il était. Le voilà tenir le micro. So they keep saying the same thing, that this mysterious man went up and took the microphone. So they are saying that even the security chief was not able to ask him, where is he coming from, or who are you? No one had power to do it. So the man took the microphone and he's gonna speak. We're gonna follow what he said. Le voilà tenir le micro sans se présenter comme ont fait ses prédécesseurs, avec un ton et un style autoritaire. Il débuta son discours. Chers compatriotes, je tiens à vous informer que les Américains ne sont plus légitimes pour bloquer notre démarche relative à l'adhésion de notre pays comme membre régulier à l'ONU. So this man took the word to do his speech, and he said that I'm telling you, my fellowship, that the U.S. government, as we are saying that these people who went down to Liberia, they came from U.S. So they had been descent of slavery, what we call today Black American, what we call African American. So the man took the word to do his speech, and they're saying that he didn't introduce himself. I think before to do this meeting, I tried to introduce myself. I told you that my name is Valère Mangituka. I'm the former Congolese community in the United States president, and I had been a co-founder and the executive secretary of the Congolese in the state of New Hampshire. I also told you that I'm the body president of the American Center and the Global Platform for Peace Advocacy, which is one of the non-profit organizations in the United States. And I also told you that in Africa, I'm the president of the coalition of a non-profit organization for the emergence of Congo and Africa. So I'm saying that back just to show how this man of power, this mysterious man, came up at a big Congress meeting with the president of Liberia sitting there. He didn't introduce himself, and he took the word to do his speech. That's why I'm trying to introduce myself, just to understand that he broke the law. He's here above the law. So we are going to discover who was that man. And this is a part of our story. We have rights to know it and to pass it to the future generation, because the Africa is the birthplace of humanity, as we understand the story of Africa, as we will save the future generations, and we will promote peace as the world looking for peace. And we don't know from where will come peace. I'm going to read back. The man said, je me suis déjà entretenu à bâton rompu avec les instances supérieures de cette organisation. So here he's saying that he already had a conversation with the leader of the United Nations. He said, point n'est plus besoin de reprendre les démarches. Y afférentes toujours, est-il que je prie son Excellence, Monsieur le chef de l'État, de bien vouloir répondre à l'invitation pour aller recevoir notre acte d'adhésion dûment signé par le secrétaire général de l'ONU à ma présence, dont voici la copie. Je n'ai pas pu vous y amener l'original avec moi, mais il faudra que Monsieur le Président, qui est le garant de la nation auprès de cette organisation, puisse ramener lui-même l'original en guise de victoire. What is saying that he came from United Nations? Just a guess. This person already came from United Nations, and he brought with him a copy telling the Liberian people that they already got the path. They had been accepted as a member of the United Nations. So he's telling the president of Liberia at that time that he's the one to go and to get the original, because he could not bring it. But he has to go to get the original as a symbol of the victory that they became a member of the United Nations. Then he added, I'm keep reading in French, à son retour triomphal au pays, je vous demanderai par anticipation à tous les membres de toutes tendances confondues dans cette salle de bien vouloir mettre les compteurs à zéro, de manière à reprendre nos relations avec les États-Unis d'Amérique, dans le cadre de la politique de la reciprocité diplomatique. So here the guy, he's explaining things and doing some orientations. He's advising them that as the president will go to the United Nations in the United States to get the original document that shows that the Liberia became a member of the United Nations. And he said that when the president will be back, we should organize our political arena and to do the diplomacy with the United States, so that we will work together as two independent nations. So he was a man of power, very smart. He had all the knowledge, but we still don't know who was that person. Then the man say it, and I'm keep reading. L'adresse de l'homme en panne à l'auditoire a été accueillie et entrecoupée par des applaudissements frénétiques à la grande satisfaction de tous. À la fin de son allocution, il reprit les mêmes passages dans les corridors séparant l'espace du protocole et celui réservé aux observateurs. Et c'est juste avant la levée de la séance, alors que les premiers ministres, les membres des conseils législatifs, exécutifs et judiciaires du Sénat et de l'Assemblée générale avaient tous besoin de s'entretenir avec lui, il s'éclipsa net. Très satisfait, le chef de l'État exigeant même la présence de l'homme en panne pour en savoir plus et pour prendre une photo souvenir. Mais on ne le verra plus. On a pensé à un moment donné qu'il était allé se soulager. Les services de protocole sensibilisés et mis en contribution pour sa recherche. Mais peine perdue. Il resta introuvable. Il convient de noter que la rubrique La piste vers l'indépendance n'a pas été mentionnée pour le Liberia du fait que le pays avait déjà été indépendant depuis le 26 juillet 1847, soit avant l'histoire des indépendances des pays africains. So, this is the point. This man left the room after he gave the documents to the president of Liberia. The man left the room. And at the end of the meeting, they were looking for him. The president wanted to meet him and to learn a lot. The Prime Minister, the Senator, or the Congress, they wanted to meet that guy. But the guy was no more there. As he came from nothing, as he left from nothing, he was not out, he was not inside, he didn't hide, he just disappeared from nothing. Who do you think that guy was? Who was that guy? Where did he come from? So that's why we will keep these meetings so we can learn a lot. And we will understand who was the guy, where did he came from. Probably tomorrow, Sunday, we will meet again around the same time. So we will keep reading the story and we will figure out the common points. As we say that Africa is the birthplace of the humanity. So all of us, we are descent of those who came from Africa. So this is a good opportunity for us to build up new thought, to promote peace and the unity around the world, because we are all people from a common ancestor. For today, we're gonna end up there. It was a pleasure for us to talk about African American, Black American, descent of slavery, those who left America, they went back to Africa, to Liberia, to build their own free land, to live their own freedom, and to lead themselves and to manage their life on the way they wanted. As we said, the Liberia was one of the first countries since 26 July 1884. They had been independent, so other countries came later. But for them to become a country, member of the United Nations, they had to fight. The world didn't want them to be a member independent in the United Nations at that time, because many of the African countries at that time, they were not independent. They were under colonization. But the Liberia had that chance to be one of the first countries being independent at that time. That means if they became the member of the United Nations, they will be sitting in the same room as a dependent country with French, Belgium, United States. So that's why many countries, many power countries of that time, they didn't want them to have that privilege of becoming independent member of the United Nations. It was just a learning story to put the connection of the world, also to help African American living in the US to know that connection of these people who left slavery in America and they went to live and to build their own land in Africa, in the country that we call Liberia. So, if you have any question or any comment, or you want to be involved in this project, you can contact us. You can text us. We like texting because we can do it in silent. You guys can text us at 603 820 9171. Again, 603 820 9171. If you text us, we will keep in touch, and maybe you will join us in different projects, especially about that special man, the humanity common ancestor. So we will get there. We will know him better, because this is just a one story of many out there. Thank you. Bye-bye.